Smith & Wesson M&P 9 metal carry comp. In this video you'll see what's in the box. We'll take a look at the manual, we'll look at fit, finish, and features, do some trigger talk, field strip it, and tell you about what'll be in the range section. All coming up next on This pistol is here thanks to the wonderful patrons of this channel. That's because on GBGuns, the patron money does not go in my pocket. It's not used for any personal gain or purposes. Instead, when that money has reached a certain level, the patrons vote on what they want to see, and oftentimes go for guns that otherwise wouldn't be on the channel. Why not Smith & Wesson? I used to do lots of Smith & Wessons, that is true. However, they had some changes at the corporate level a couple releases ago, and began having a multi-page contract they want media to sign in order to get a T&E gun. Now, I've signed contracts before for getting samples in to review, no problem with that, except somewhere in this, I think it was 11 or 12 page contract, I found a line about not making any derogatory comments or anything negative, anything not positive, rather, about the review, and I, quite frankly, refuse to do that. As a result, I don't take any T&E guns from Smith & Wesson, and yes, unfortunately, that does mean the channels that you see do the launch coverage for stuff have all agreed that they're not going to say anything negative about the gun. This became a big deal with guns like the incredible little Bodyguard 2.0. I really enjoyed this pistol. Have it also because of patron funding and patron choice. However, when I got it, my sample aired wildly left, despite the sights seeming to be fairly straight. I didn't see any issues there, but aired quite a bit left. Then, as we saw other media who had purchased the guns and were not part of the launch party do their reviews, they had the same issue. And then, months, almost a year later, still getting comments from individuals of the general public who have also purchased one and have the same problems. And yet, when this launched, none of those launch media made any comments about the gun not shooting straight. Yes, you can adjust the sights and there are workarounds to it, but that's just one of the little details that I find a little bit troublesome, and as a result, until things change, I'm not working directly with Smith & Wesson. Fortunately, we've got generous patrons who are curious about guns that I honestly am also curious about. I just can't afford this stuff on my own. Let's get on the tabletop. I'm really curious to see what all the Performance Center and the metal line adds to the 2.0 compact. This is a very early one, as you can tell, still has the curved trigger, which I know a lot of people complain about. I didn't think was bad. I didn't have a problem with this hinged trigger. It's not the greatest trigger, but it works. But otherwise, I really thought the platform was a good gun. So what happens when you go metal? Opening the box as a Performance Center model, we get, of course, the cleaning kit. Now, this is a universal cleaning kit, for better or for worse. If this is your only gun, then you won't need half of it. However, if you're buying a Performance Center, it's probably not your only gun. But you get a nice cleaning rod, wiping cloths to fit on the jags of various bore diameters. You got brushes, and you got a little toothbrush, all in a little handy kit. Very nice addition. Under the flap, we have an extra mag. Well, I'll lift things out of the way for that. Much easier to just rip open or pull open the cardboard than to dig through there. We have our second magazine, the plates, as this is an optics ready model, as well as a lot of screws. I hope the manual's got a guide as to which screws for what. Obviously, as far as finding what fits on plates, that's a simple matter of slapping the optic on there. These are rather flimsy, rather bendable plastic plates. Some people are nervous about that. I could see validity in that, since the little bumps here, these little recoil lugs, are what's supposed to take the shock impact as the slide cycles, not the screws, because screws are not made for shear strength. How's that going to hold up? We'll have to find out over time. And then we get our 3 additional back straps, taking us to a total of 4 back straps, much like a Grand Power. And as you can see, these wrap around, so you're getting 3 sides of change in grip feel, much like a Grand Power, as well as our federally mandated lock. get that out of the way, and some notes from the manual. Show the manual for two reasons. One, it shows us how well the company wants us to understand the product, as in how much do they care if you're going to have a good time or not with it, and know how to use it well. And the other one is to show the YouTube overlords that when I field strip this, I am not gunsmithing, I'm not modifying the gun, I'm doing basic end user level maintenance and safety. It's a standard 4-color affair, as these grayscale black, white, and red manuals are called. As far as ammunition, since I always get asked about that, according to this, and this segment appears to be generic to all Smith & Wessons, it says that 9mm standard and plus P pressure is okay, but no plus P plus. That makes sense, since plus P does have a spec, plus P plus does not. The manual is specific to the metal model of guns, and the images are quite clear, using red highlights to explain things. It's very thorough, quite nicely done. I think something that if this was your first gun, that you'd be comfortable learning from. So props to that. Includes other details like swapping the magazine release. Don't recall if I saw anything about the optics. Here we are at the end. There you go, a nice big chart for what plate and which screws to use, along with some pictures to try to identify those screws. So that's nice. Now let's see what some of the differences are between my early compact standard model and this Performance Center metal carry comp. Obviously it's been some time, some things have changed, and for close-ups of this stuff, check the pinned comment over on my website is where I can put those photos and things. They can do better stuff than I can do with just my standard video camera. So obviously the biggest difference being that the metal has an aluminum frame. This is something that was kind of foreshadowed with the launch of the sadly failed CSX. When I talked to Smith & Wesson when that CSX first came out, they said it's a sign of things to come, and here we are. Now we have aluminum frames. Aluminum is an interesting choice. It's really not that much heavier than polymer. I'll pull out the scale here and we'll take a look at weight differences, but it does change the feel and the shooting characteristics. It changes those shooting characteristics in two ways. One that you got to be kind of a shooting nerd to notice, but that is you don't have the rubberiness of polymer to absorb the shock when the slide slams rearward, and so people feel, sensitive people can feel a little bit more vibration, a little bit more impact of the shot. It feels more direct. Now, as a current and Performance Center model, you can notice that the traction points up front on the slide here have been greatly enhanced. These were kind of a cute suggestion of forward serrations without really being serrations, and I've got to thank Mr. Guns and Gear for one of his videos for pointing out the unfortunateness to this contour on the frame with those serrations. Meant that if you grab them and go to try to rack, this contour pushes you off. Now that could work for a press check, kind of, but it's really hard to grip. As you saw, I just struggled there, and then that swelling of the frame knocks you off. On this one, we've got not only proper front serrations, but these things are almost sharp. They're kind of bitey in hand. We've also had some weight reduction to the slide beyond those cuts with a little window. Of course, this is ported, so there's a chunk missing there. We've moved on to optics readiness with the 7 different plates that come with the gun. And I've noticed that the slide stop release lever is much more pronounced than the original. Factory sights, we've gone from 3-dot white, and this was at the start of the trend of we don't want low snag anymore, now we want high snag so we can rack off of things. That's evident in the newer one, but we've moved on to a night sight with a ring. We also have more traction points, sort of, in the sense of this cutout here might have been for the safety on the manual safety models, and then we've got this cutout here that does work as a bit of an index point. However, it's also shaving some weight, and you can see we've got loss there. Rail space has remained the same. The texture is that same 2.0 super aggressiveness, but a nice thing about it being these panels that are inserted is if you wanted to knock one of those down, you could, and then you could replace it. I don't know about replacing the front here. I'm hoping they've got a better glue now than they had on the original CSX, where many people found those falling off. The trigger has also changed. This is what Smith & Wesson is calling a flat face trigger, and though I think we can all see that there's a curve there, I agree with them that it's flat in that this curve kind of scoops your finger down to the bottom, which is where you get the most leverage. Hell, we'll do some trigger talk now. Kind of a grindy take up to a wall, and a decent break. Still got the mag in there. Reset, hard to feel. You can kind of hear it, but it's there, and it takes you right in front of that wall again. But this flat face, as I showed you, the curve kind of, I'm over exaggerating now, curve kind of brings your finger down to the bottom where it is flat. And the break is at about 90 degrees, so nicely done there. Let me grab the scale real quick and we'll see what kind of weight difference we have, even though the capacity is different, which means this grip is a little bit longer. I'm going to remove the magazine from each of these since we have different magazine sizes. Well, that'll at least take us down to just the gun itself. 24 ounces in the original. 25.2 ounces in the 0.3 in the aluminum. So as I said, aluminum really isn't that much heavier than polymer, and we've got a longer stock here to make things different. I'm also curious to see, and we'll do this when we field strip, if there is interchangeability between these slides. Remember when Walther went to the steel frame models, they used that as a chance to sort of redesign things, and as a result, the frames or the slides are not interchangeable between polymer and steel. Alright, I couldn't help it. Yes, the slides do interchange. Now on to our standard tabletop. Lock the side of the rear. You can see that we're empty, also taking pressure off the magazine. Do we get magazine ejection or release? We get a little bit of ejection, which is nice, and obviously with metal on metal, should come out rather easily. We'll check our MB side slide release. Oh, that's stiff, but it definitely works as a lock. There we go, a little bit better, just probably needs some break-in. Now, as I pointed out on almost every MB slide release gun, the actual catch is happening on this side, so that force that you're applying has to be transferred through the gun, putting some torsion on the metal piece that is reaching around there. And as a result, sometimes the feel isn't as good, it's not as direct as doing the other side. Coming up to the front of the gun, and yes, this is the gray finish that I went with. You can see, oh good. What I'm looking at in there, you notice that step back in there, that means that the barrel is backboard. What you're seeing inside that little step is actually the end of the rifling. That's good because with the popularity of ports, a lot of people are discovering that if you run plated ammunition, say Blazer brass, which is great ammunition by the way, but it's plated, run it through a port when the rifling continues, that port will shave some of that jacket off. That can impact accuracy, and also means a little bit of jacket, or plating rather, comes flying out random direction propelled by the gases that are pushing the bullet. So it can be a bit of a safety concern. I've seen more and more companies doing this back bore. I'm glad Smith & Wesson is doing the same. Our slide serrations, as I pointed out earlier, are very grippy, a little bit sharp, and you've got something all the way over the top, although I don't know why you'd have pressure on the top. Maybe it's just styling, maybe it's just slide weight reduction. How much weight? We'll take a look at that in the article. No texturing on the front of the trigger guard. Interesting, since Jerry Michalik, a famous Smith & Wesson shooter, is a big fan of gripping up there, but they did not include it here. We've got a decent radius. I can feel a little bit of an edge there, rubbing my hand on, but not terrible. It's definitely not Glock bad. I've felt better, but it's done well. Plenty of this fissure aggressive texturing on the front strap on one of these panels. Like I said, those are glued in. Hopefully it stays this time. Underneath we have little cuts, little reliefs to be able to strip a magazine if you're not familiar with how to properly strip a Type 3 malfunction. I do have a video on that. A little bit of beveling for magwell, and our lanyard loop / extension / backstrap removal tool serves as an index point for being able to slam mags in, which I appreciate. The way these are changed, though YouTube won't let me show you, is this is twisted and comes out like a key, after which point you can remove the back strap easily. Not a lot of texture up here, obviously. It's totally smooth. I know some people like that as a spot to apply pressure with their support hand palm. Not going to happen here. Just going to have to learn how to deal with it. Slide to frame fit, fairly tight. We got some side to side. Really doesn't matter, but I know people like to ask about that. Serrated U-notch rear and that nice bright front sight, as well as being optics ready. Now I of course do my best to review every gun as they come out of the box and not modify them, so that my range experience is representative of what your range experience could be, without that optic, for example, causing potential jams if brass bounces off of it, or adding weight to a slide that causes the slide to not function, and so a round doesn't feed in what's for dinner, blah blah blah. I'll be running this with irons, probably hit the range again with it with optics later on. And the witness window at the top here is a Smith & Wesson thing. I know a lot of people have complained about it and not liked it. However, they are advertising this as part of their clear view cut, I guess. So it's supposed to protect the optic. You're not supposed to get gases jetting onto your optic. Is that true or not? We'll find out. I'm noticing, okay, that was just some stuff. I was going to say, wow, I already have barrel finish wear, and I've only racked this slide maybe a dozen times. Next, we'll field strip this and take a look inside the gun. Field strip Smith & Wesson M&P metal carry comp. We're going to check for clear. Lock the slide to the rear, which also doubles as checking for clear. Rotate this lever downward, like that. Let the slide go forward and release the striker. That lets the slide come off. Now we can take a look inside of our frame. Pretty standard common construction. That little yellow dingus doohickey thingy is a way of being able to disassemble without pulling the trigger. They've done that for law enforcement agencies that unfortunately don't have the best training for their officers. But checking for clear, we'll remove our solid steel guide rod, which is nice and beefy. Tap down on the barrel, remove it, and we can take a look inside the slide. Very nicely finished, very nice cut. It's a good looking slide. You can see our safety dingus. And now we'll take a look at chamber fitment. Make sure that's clean. Yeah, a little bit of dirt, but shouldn't be a problem. Chamber fitment is done with a piece of Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense. I like the nickel plating for corrosion resistance for a round that I handle a lot. I'm going to drop it in and listen for plunk, like that. Grab the base of the brass, see if it rotates freely. It does. It's not super slick, but we know the chamber is not super clean either. And then in looking for chamber support, what we want to see is how much beyond the shoulder of the brass there is exposed. And as you can see, none. This is a fully supported chamber. I like that because should a case want to rupture, that helps keep the force going out the barrel and not into your hand, especially on an aluminum frame gun. That pressure wouldn't have many places to go, probably blow out the magazine. Trying to see if I can get you guys a better view of that back boring. You can see that edge inside the barrel there. That's where the rifling stops. So this barrel is effectively about that long, not the full length. So that might cost a wee bit of velocity, but no more than the porting would. As I reassemble this, I'll tell you what you can expect to see in the shooting impressions video. Those will include my absolute first shots through the gun. That's right, I don't collect a bunch of B-roll to then show you what I want you to see. You see the real thing from the start, and including those important first impressions, because that's what we all have first time we shoot something. Sometimes they're spot on, sometimes they lead us to something, and sometimes they're wrong as we get to learn the gun. I think it's a valuable part of gun ownership journey, and so that's why I captured that for you. Then we'll do full magazine plus one with these 17 rounders. Take it over to the trademark What's for Dinner table, where 10 additional loads will be fed into the gun to see what the gun eats. The spinner for sights and trigger control, which is a 6-inch spinner shot at about 13 yards. Then I'll group 5 shots from 7 yards on a 1-inch square. That's also where I collect up my thoughts, so I can get to the last part, which is the after shots thoughts. giving you my impressions of the gun after spending a day on the range with it. As always, full specs, details, where to find this, what the cost, stuff like that, is in the pinned comment. I don't bore you guys with that stuff here. I plan on also doing some comparison with the original. Got to figure out what kind of drills I want to do with that, as well as with swapping the slides to see how much the slide difference makes. That article will also include differences in slide mass, since as educated GBGuns viewers know, slide mass is a big part of your perceived recoil. So with these extra deep cuts and weight removal, etc., what differences do we get? We'll find that out. See you on the range. Thanks for watching.